I'm still married to my wife, who is likewise 21 years old. We met before joining the military. At People Cultures, I had already recruited and was preparing to go to boot camp when she followed me and enlisted as well, much to my surprise. In any case, we dated for nearly a year before getting married early. We lived in an off-base flat for 3 months. There we led a shaky marriage after discovering she's very insecure and subtly narcissistic. She would start fights out of nowhere on stuff that didn't really important in the larger scheme of things. I caught glimpses of the beast lurking behind her baby blue eyes, but pretended not to notice. Anyway, at the end of those 3 months, my upcoming deployment had finally arrived. And it was a very difficult day for me, because I had to say goodbye to her for the first time in a long time. I'd gotten tremendously connected to her and had made her my entire universe. Everything centered around her. She appeared both sorry that I was leaving and just as connected as I was. I'll never know if that was true. Every day I looked forward to returning to the home we shared and continuing my life with her. When I arrived in country, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. We communicated every day and called as often as we could. She even apologized for her behavior and asked me how she could improve so that when I returned, we wouldn't have any problems. This was the overarching theme of the deployment for the first few months. However, I became really busy at that moment and was unable to correspond as much. During that period, she appeared to detach, but she still adhered to her philosophy of complete openness and began telling me about this guy Buddy she made in her military police platoon. After approximately a month of being busy doing military duties, she gradually began to become distant, not messaging or calling as regularly. I was finally finished with what was going on and could return my complete focus to her. Her presence, however, had lessened. It soon came to the point where I had to beg her to phone or text me back. She began concealing her activities and refusing to tell me what she was up to. She informed me she was falling out of love, which crushed me. Became incredibly miserable and unable to accomplish my job successfully. I started losing sleep and sometimes weeks without sleeping. It all came to a climax one weekend when she went utterly black. And when I asked her what happened, she refused to tell me. After a period of probing her, she eventually answered, "I think you know the answer." I marched into my squad leader's room, informed him what occurred, and requested for some time to contemplate it. He agreed, and I walked back to my room, crying furiously. After the stages of grief were past, I gathered myself and began to get back on my feet. I'm attempting to seek a divorce. She's unapologetic and unconcerned about how any of this impacts me, since this has developed into a full-fledged love affair. Now I can't bear the notion of seeing her again. Now the next story. My wife and I were dating in high school when I decided to propose to her. After I proposed, I chose to join the military, and by the time I arrived at basic training, my wife and I had been married for a year and had been dating for 2 years. so I trusted her completely, and she moved in with my parents while I was abroad. She started showing off her body and texting guys the day I left. You see, a week later, an army guy chatted with her at work, and she slept with him less than 24 hours later. On my birthday, I discovered that my wife had strayed because she made up a tale to my parents about how she received a hickey and was raped by a male. When she told me this tale, I was furious that I couldn't protect her and that I couldn't leave where I was to be with her. But then I started seeing strange things in her tale. So I examined her messages on Out and her locations and discovered it was all a hoax. And I discovered all of her nudes as well as a slew of new man connections in her phone. She only slept with one guy, but she slept with roughly 20 other guys. She accomplished all of this within 2 weeks of my leaving for basic training. And I just discovered Out as I was about to graduate. Because of COVID, I had to travel directly to my training base without seeing anyone or seeing her when I first joined. I went 8 months without seeing her, but we kept in touch via phone. But during this time, I tried to understand her and forgive her for what she had done, and I made the decision to stay with her. After I finished training, we were sent overseas, and I told her we would use that time to work ourselves out. 3 years later, I've come to grips with what occurred, and I believe her since she was simply too young at the time we both graduated. And I'm confident she'll never do that again, because that's the sense I get. I have unrestricted access to her phone, which I never do. She goes to great lengths to gain my trust. The biggest issue is that even though it's been 3 years since she cheated, I still don't feel totally over it. I constantly wonder what life would be like if we hadn't married or if I should divorce her when we move. I know she loves me, but I'm not sure if I love her the same way. I adore her, but it sometimes feels like we're roommates. And when she tries to hold me, I run away. Or when she shows affection, I don't really return it. And going on dates feels like a duty, and I'm lost. I'm not sure if I want to be with her or not. I know I love her, but I'm still heartbroken, and I often wonder what would happen if I married someone else. And I'm at a loss on what to do or where to go from here. Now the next story. Without going into too much detail, I stumbled across some texts she sent to someone I'd never heard of this past July. They were overtly intimate, and I confessed to losing my calm before reading everything. She erased the thread, as well as the supplementary thread on TikTok chats with the guy. She addressed this jerk as Daddy, which is my pet name. She absolutely ripped my heart in two. I blew my top and broke. I called her out on it and told her that she had cheated in my opinion. It doesn't matter if it's only chatting and fantasizing, because if he was there, what would stop you? It's been 4 years since I discovered these messages. To clarify, before this experience, I had complete faith in my wife. We have 3 wonderful children, and another on the way, but something urged me that day to check her texts. What motivated her to do this? Severe depression. I struggle on a daily basis to find the drive to complete ordinary household activities, and my memory is terrible. This irritates my wife, and she has to remind me of it on a regular basis. That's all. That's why she informed me in the middle of an argument over her infidelity that it was because I didn't do what she requested. My wife has a profession that requires her to work overnight. Before I discovered the messages, I saw some strange handprints on the bonnet of our shared automobile. We have handprints on the automobile. So I cleaned them thoroughly and left them alone because I knew they weren't from us. But until that day, when everything appeared to click, as the quick deleting of her texts before I could read them all, her gaslighting me and twisting it around, and how I mistreated her and glossing over my sentiments of being dumped. I've cleaned and completely removed handprints from the hood of the car 5 times already. And they're back this evening. Am I going insane? What am I supposed to do? I'm at home with my kids full time, and my mind and I are in such a sad place. My wife worked the night before my 28th birthday, and let me tell you, it was a struggle to get through it. The 27 Club was pounding hard. Every time she calls me Daddy, it pains me. I made her stop for a few weeks until she begged me to let her call me that again. I suppose not having that right was too much of a reminder. I'll never leave my children to be raised by another guide, but my head is in a terrible place right now. Thank you for listening to this story to the end, and if you like it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you think about the story.